I want to just briefly introduce and thank our next reminiscer, speaker. Molly Scoville Fitzmaurice happens to have been on the Scoville board of directors, doing the work, being a constant presence of enthusiasm and substance to help us move forward. And so I wanted to thank her for that, because board members are not paid, but she maintains the integrity and the vision that Pete had. And so it helps us, the rest of the board, to remain focused on the legacy that we so proudly carry forward. I did also want to recognize very briefly board members from the Scoville Peace Fellowship. They go unheralded, except most of them are busy running their own arms control and non-proliferation groups. So thank you all. And Molly, if you would come on up and share some of your reminiscences and thoughts about Pete.
Yep, no problem. And by the way, I always, to the fellows who come to be interviewed, I always, it's just easiest to simply, in this age of feminism, I'm still reduced to just saying Herbert Scoville's daughter, and that's it, because that is the most important role I can serve on that board. In 1917, 2 years after my father was born, his family did its part to help out with the Great War effort by growing and canning tomatoes. And by the way, in our family, it is pronounced tomatoes, to send to Great Britain. And so at age 2, little Pete became the family poster child. And my brothers may know which picture I'm pulling out, but here we go. As you can, probably pretty hard to see, but his motto is can food. So, and obviously, as you can see, in his case, public service started pretty early. In fact, I think my brothers would agree that our father was always putting the needs of the country way ahead of his own career. And the one example of that I remember was when President Eisenhower offered him the very prestigious job of Assistant Science Advisor. And my father actually turned it down because he dared not leave his post at the CIA in the hands of the hawks who were circling above. And that was pretty impressive, and the kind of thing that I actually remember as a child. And he was also very modest. Although the history books and biographies don't mention it, at least I haven't seen it. Last year, my mother, she's no longer with us, but she actually told me that the reconnaissance photos that were brought back on the missiles building up around Cuba, when they were shown to my father, he said, I think the president needs to see these immediately. And it was he and others who went to see Kennedy, but my father never boasted about the role he played during those critical hours. And as I say, I don't think you see his name among those, but my mother distinctly remembers him saying, this has got to go to the president immediately. Speaking of both Eisenhower and Kennedy, he once told me that the difference between an Eisenhower staff meeting and a Kennedy staff meeting was that the Eisenhower ones ended on schedule. He said the Kennedy ones ended when consensus could be reached, but rarely on time and usually very late. On November 22nd, 1963, my father's appointment to a newly created post at the Arms Control and Disarmament Agency was sitting on Kennedy's desk the day he left for Dallas. Unfortunately, Kennedy was behind schedule again that morning, and my father's appointment would have been one of the last documents he would have been very proud to sign. It was, of course, later signed by Johnson, but a great loss to us, I think. After Kennedy's death, my father plugged on and continued to dispute the claims of the hawks in government, and although he went on as long as he could until he finally was no longer satisfied with the facts that were getting out about the arms race, and at that point he did leave government and took his act on the road. And it's at that point that the wonderful Chad Dobson comes in. It was in Utah, I believe, that Chad was inspired by Daddy to come to Washington, and Chad, Ann Kahn, and maybe you can name the rest of the gang, put this together. So we have them to thank for ensuring his legacy with this fellowship. Thank you very much.